Hello and welcome back to the Shitty Mechanic. Today we're going to be talking about these protests that have broke out in absolute violence, rioting, and looting in the name of George Floyd. This is a hard subject to talk about. That's why it's taken so long for me to make a video on this, because I've been thinking of a way to the best of my ability to tactfully come about this subject with as much respect to George Floyd and his family as much as I can. As much as this death should not have happened, and that it was wrong, and that this was police brutality at its finest, it should not have happened. It should have never happened. And I'm glad these police officers have been arrested. But, big but there, that does not mean that people can go out and riot, peacefully protest all you want. More power to you. It's your right. And no one can take that away from you. But when you go out there because you notice an opportunity to get free stuff in the name of the deceased, that is where I draw the line. You do not hurt other businesses that had nothing to do with this man's death and do it to try to help yourself or line your pockets. It's wrong. And today we're going to check out a couple of videos of these riots, and I'm going to tell you about a protest for George Floyd that I was in attendance of, but was not involved in the protest. I was attending with my local militia to make sure that a riot didn't break out, and we were guarding local businesses. And I'll get more to that here in a minute, but first, let's take a look at this video. First, we see a cop car getting assaulted by the rioters and a man jumping on the hood of the car as the police officer attempts to flee, as he should have, because there's nothing he could have done in that situation. He was vastly outnumbered, and this man has fallen off the cop car while it was going at speed, and he has injured himself and has presumably knocked himself unconscious. And rightfully so, people are worried about the physical well-being of this man. But that would not have happened if he wasn't rioting. The second you riot, you take a risk that your life may be taken away from you, either by someone else or by something stupid that you do, or, God forbid, by other rioters. Let's take another look at this video. As you can see, they were stealing car batteries to get revenge for George Floyd. Buildings are on fire. Absolute chaos. Haven't seen anything like that since Mad Max. And thank you, the Sun, for providing this footage for me to show on my channel.
We've had a number of fires set. We've had a bad amount of looting, just widespread civil disobedience. And it's unfortunate. It's sad. If people are there, truly there, to honor the memory of the decedent and the family, this isn't how you do it.
I guess it was Target that killed George Floyd, right? Not those awful police officers and the officers that stood by while an innocent man, well, not innocent man, but an undeserving man of death was killed. Real classy. Real classy protesters. I don't know if you saw that or not, but there was a man recording himself on his phone, probably to social media or to his friends or something or other. He was recording himself smiling. He didn't look like he actually cared about the protest that was originally going on. It looks like he just cared about getting some free shit. And I'll be honest, this is painful. This is painful to watch. And I don't like it at all. The fact that we have people in this country that will abuse a wrongful death and the memory of to go out and riot and cause chaos is beyond me. Maybe if we had more fathers in the home to teach people right and wrong. Maybe if we didn't have music that went around glorifying gangster shit and robbing and murdering and killing and drugs. And I know I sound like that old guy blaming the music right now. But that's how it is. When you get media out there that glorifies this kind of thing, you're probably more prone to try and go and do it yourself. And I'm not saying everyone has to listen to something completely wholesome all the time. God knows I didn't. Because most people are smart enough not to act what they hear in the music they listen to or in the video games they play. Because we're healthy, normal adults who have impulse control and don't let our actions be defined on what we listen to or what we play or what we watch. But as you can see, these people were just looking at an excuse to break the law and probably never ever get in trouble for it. These people that you see in these videos will probably never go to jail, will probably never see a judge or anything. I know this may be controversial, but I will say it right now, and I know a lot of people are on the same page with me. What the police should have done during these riots would not to tear gas them or 9-bang them or whatever. What they should have done, again, controversial, sue me, would be to shoot to kill every rioter. I don't even know if I fully agree with that or not, but apparently tear gas and 9-bangers and pepper balls and rubber bullets aren't doing the job. And I feel that as soon as you go and you steal from somebody else, you break into somebody's home, or you break into somebody's business and you steal from them, or you destroy someone's property, you have forfeit your right to live. For example, if someone were to break into my house right now, that man's right to live no longer exists. If I was a business owner and someone pulled a gun and wanted money out of my register or wanted to come and mass loot my store, they have all lost their right to live. Poof, it's gone. If I was in my car and people were banging on my car, breaking down my car, trying to hurt me or get me out of my vehicle, I would not slow down. I will hit the gas, and if someone gets run over, several people get run over, well, play stupid games, and you win stupid prizes. And all these people that are out here looting are playing a stupid game. Whether they win that stupid prize or not today, may not be today, may not be tomorrow, but it will be someday. That stupid prize is going to come and it's going to fuck them in the ass with the cactus. Notice how the majority of these rioters are all African Americans. And I'm not saying African Americans are criminals, but what I am saying is that there is a stereotype, and they're hammering that stereotype home. They don't want to be seen as criminals. They don't want to be seen as defunct members of society. But when people go out and do things like this, it takes that stereotype and it just chisels it into stone. Now, anytime anyone hears about George Floyd, they will remember these protests, and these days will be remembered in infamy forever. This is also around the time that militias and armed citizens should have been protecting other people and protecting stores from these rioters. I wouldn't call them protesters anymore. I have no sympathy for these protesters or for these rioters. No sympathy in my book. They should have had the militiamen standing outside of those high target stores like supermarkets, pawn shops, gun stores, and other conglomerate stores like this that have expensive items, and done whatever they could to stop people from entering them and causing more chaos. If there's bodies to clean up, there's bodies to clean up. At least knowing what would have happened wouldn't be as bad, because no innocent lives would have been lost, no one's property would have been damaged, and no one's livelihoods would have been destroyed. I know this is very controversial, and I want to get this straight right now. I am not inciting violence. What I am saying is that what these people are doing is violence. And what I am saying is I'm not inciting unreciprocated violence. I'm not just saying just go out and just stack bodies. But what I am saying is that if you see a riot happening and you see someone innocent being hurt, injured, killed, etc., it should be your duty as an American, as an armed American, to go help that person. Or else, what do we have guns for? We don't have guns just to sit and watch these riots happen. We have guns to protect ourselves, to protect people, and to stop things like this from happening, and a whole other multitude of reasons. We as Americans do not have the Second Amendment to be bystanders and let this thing happen. And I'm not saying that's what everyone was doing. But what I am saying is that there wasn't enough militiamen out there. You know, heck, it's Michigan. I don't even know if they have an actual militia to speak of. But I'm sure there's something somebody could have done. They could have banded up and protected these people from their businesses getting robbed, from people getting beat up in the street, from people getting killed. Instead of sitting around letting these looters know pretty much essentially what they're doing is okay and that nobody's going to stop them. And I'm not saying we should boogaloo. And like thing is, when I hear people say, oh, the 3%ers or the gun owners, you know, they're not going to do anything, I'm starting to think they're probably right. And here's why. It's because people don't know when to start or to boogaloo or how to do it. It's very there's no actual planning really involved, at least that I know of. And sometimes I fear that we won't reestablish the government in the way it was intended until, or at least attempt to do so until it's too late. I just hope it doesn't come to that. But with race relations seemingly being at an all-time low, everything taken is racist. And people react this way. I just hate to see it. It's awful, and God, it's stupid. It's fucking retarded. These people who are rioting are fucking retarded. They don't care about George Floyd. They don't care about his murder. They don't care about these, they don't give a shit. They just want to loot and pack their vehicles up with crap. Material crap. Know how much material crap you steal. It will never fit that hole in the Floyd family where their husband, their brother, or a father used to be. He's gone forever, and writing will not bring him back. The liquor store. They're looting the liquor store. What the fuck? What in the actual fuck? They're looting the liquor store. George Floyd dies and they want to riot and get fucking crunk. This is how I know they don't care about George Floyd. They just want their 70-inch flat screens. They want their Jordans. They want their liquor. And they just see this as an opportunity to take from others things that they did not work for, things they did not earn. I don't know how much longer I can watch this. Let's finish this video.
Let's talk things that happened in Minneapolis, cop standpoint, right? I'm disgusted with the things that happened in Minneapolis. Period, point blank. Things could have went way different. At the end of the day, let's talk facts. The guy is on the ground. He's laying on his stomach. He have handcuffs on. It's 4 of y'all, 1 of him. 4 of y'all, 1 of him. Who has control of this situation? It's not much one person could do against 4 people. Now let's get deeper, right? As an officer, you are a first responder, right? So if in the midst of you trying to gain compliance, someone is hurt, you have to render aid. So somebody's saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. You don't think to yourself and say, oh my gosh, this guy can't breathe. He might die. Let me render aid, right? Another point, officers, other officers, if you're going to be an officer that's going to stand there and not help when things go wrong, come on, like you don't see that? That's the reason I got behind this badge, right? Because I want them officers that's afraid to step up, I want to be the one to step up. If I see wrong happening, wrong is not happening in my presence, right? I'm going to check it. And that's period.
Couldn't have put it better myself. If you are an officer of the law, it is your duty to uphold the Constitution and uphold the law of the land. And when you have this man pinned down the way he was, and you're just standing around as this man is suffocating, and then takes his last breath on camera. And pretty much what is a snuff film? It's hard. It's absolutely disgusting. Now, what I want to do is I want to talk about the protest out in Boise, which did remain peaceful, at least for, I believe, for the most part. I was when I said I was attending this protest out in Boise, I was not in attendance of the Black Lives Matter protest. I was in attendance with the local militia and other Second Amendment supporters of that protest, actually helping make sure that these people don't loot and don't riot and don't put any other people in danger. Our mere presence alone has deterred them from such. Except for one asshole. One stupid motherfucker. He did something that, as you can see from the thing that was popped up from my cursor, he did something really fucking stupid, and we did not want him around us any longer. And he was charged with a misdemeanor from the police. Thank God. The guy is stupid and he's dangerous, and we don't want him anywhere around us because, like the looters, even though he wasn't looting, but like the looters, he's fucking retarded. Now, let's watch this little news clip from KTVB, who tried talking to us after the fact, me and the other armed people there, and we mostly just trolled him. We didn't tell him any actual information, and when he found out it wasn't worth his time, he left. But let's see what is happening here.
Are now hearing from one of the dozens of people at the state capitol last night when police say someone accidentally fired off a round. This as crowds of folks were protesting the death of George Floyd. Our Shira Matsuzawa is here now with how one is describing the moment that gunshot went off and what he says happened before it all unfolded, and some panic ensued. Shira?
Absolutely, Mark, and you'll hear from that man in just a moment. But since our news at 10 last night, we've learned 18-year-old Michael Wallace is now out of jail. Boise police say no one was hurt, and police are still investigating, or they are investigating that shooting as an unintentional or accidental discharge.
I can tell you what happened right now. From what I remember correctly, a protester or somebody put his hands on him. But context, all right? This guy had an AR. Not wrong with that weapon. It's a fabulous weapon. But he had very little, if any, firearms training. And what we noticed is that his booger hook was on the bang switch with the safety off. And when this protester or whatever put his hands on him, he went to sling his rifle to the side and he fired a round into the sidewalk by his feet. And he was charged with misdemeanor of discharging a firearm in city limits. And boy, he was put into custody, charged with said misdemeanor, given a court date, and was released. And near the end of the protest, before everything started to disperse, he got into his Hyundai Veloster. I mean, how dumb do you gotta be to buy a 3-door car? 2 or 4. It's like, oh, you could have, it's like people who fire 40 Smith & Wesson. It's like, oh, it's like a 9mm and a 45. Cat and a dog. Have a 2-door and a 4-door. Have a 2-door and a 4-door. Have the 3-door. Oh, have sex with men and women. Oh, shit, right? Just poking some fun. I kind of stole that joke from Colin Noir and put the Hyundai Veloster thing in there. But yeah, dude's a total fucking dweeb. He gets in this Hyundai Veloster and does probably the most pathetic peel out I've ever seen. Keep in mind, the ground was a little was a little bit wet where he was, and he still couldn't even do a decent peel out in his little 4-cylinder front-wheel drive shitbox. And boy, everyone was heckling the shit out of this guy. We didn't want him anywhere near us, and boy, we made fun of him. Gosh, we wanted to make fun of him till the sun came up. But too bad we're only there till 4 a.m.
Terrifying moments on the steps of the Capitol Monday after police say 18-year-old Michael Wallace accidentally fired a round as crowds were protesting.
Get down.
Among those in the crowd was Anthony Walsh.
In my gut, I just had a feeling that something was not gonna go well. When the gun went off, all of us kind of crouched down to the ground. Some people laid on the ground. My heart started racing and adrenaline started going immediately.
Alright, first thing you want to do, if you hear a gunshot, first thing you want to do, find cover and concealment. If there's no cover and concealment around you, shrink your hitbox. Get down on the ground. Make yourself a smaller target. Thank God this was only a negligent discharge. Not that that's cool either. But at least he wasn't intentionally shooting at people. But they had the right idea. Get down. Hide. Make yourself invisible. Get behind something that can stop or at least slow down that round.
Immediately.
Walsh says he was originally at Monday's protest to document what was happening, but then started doing surveillance when he noticed another group of people armed with rifles standing across the street from other protesters.
Okay, that guy with the mask, that's Matt Walsh right there. Here, I'll back up a little bit for you.
Armed with rifles.
This guy, I'll turn my camera so you can see. That guy, that's him. Now, let's keep watching this video.
Standing across the street from other protesters.
They're picking on the kids, threatening them, trying to intimidate them with the guns.
When that gun went off, I was just like infuriated that somebody would even discharge a gun, not only amongst a group of people, but there was kids right around that area at the same time.
During an AARP town hall on Tuesday about COVID-19 and...
Look how many times he had tried to keep that straight finger. Alright, when you have a gun, you keep your finger straight and off the trigger unless you intend to fire, right? Safety's on, hammer's at half cock, this gun ain't firing. Trigger's locked in position. But even then, you want to keep your fingers straight and off the trigger, and don't make fun of me for my gun. It's just what I decided to wear today. But you see how his finger was kind of moving like this? Like kind of like this as you just walk around? He was petting the trigger with his finger. Which, duh, something was gonna happen. I'll rewind it so you guys can see it one more time.
Unemployment
At the same time.
During an AARP
Right there.
town hall on Tuesday about
again.
COVID-19 and unemployment, Governor Brad Little briefly mentioned Monday's protest.
The one thing that
At the same time.
During an AARP
Right there.
town hall on
Right there.
Tuesday
Do it
about
2 more times like that.
COVID-19
Oh, and
and
again.
unemployment, Governor Brad Little briefly
What I noticed, he did it at least 4 times in a 5-second period. What a dumb shit.
mentioned Monday's protest.
the one thing the demonstrations did last night, it took my mind off of unemployment for a few hours because it's been top of mind, the calls that we get.
As for Anthony, he says he's proud that what started out as a peaceful protest ended peaceful.
Hearing the echo at the Grove there as they were doing that, it was a very powerful moment. Our forefathers gave us our constitutional right to peacefully protest, and we need to keep these protests peaceful across our nation. Destroying our communities is not the way to go about this with getting our message across. There is much more better ways that we can get our message across.
And you just heard Anthony Walsh there talk about the other group.
And I was there that night. And protesters are hanging out at the Capitol building. And some dude, I can only assume, was in his mom's minivan driving around the block in front of us who are armed, blaring like the same like chorus of some song. It was like some rap song. It was like, fuck Donald Trump, fuck Donald Trump. You know, it was like some rap song, just repeating the chorus over and over. He made like 3 or 4 rounds. Then all of a sudden, the other guys like armed out. It's like, hey, I think your mom wants her minivan back at midnight. And he would look over every time, and that's usually how we made a little bit of fun of him, because we knew what he was trying to do, and we were just doing our best to take it all in stride. And I didn't go Tuesday night. I heard it was much bigger and that I should have showed up, but I wasn't able to make it there because I had other obligations here at home. And I'm glad, at least to my knowledge, I didn't break out in violence, and I'm glad that I guess that nothing happened, because if something did happen, then I would probably be feeling obligated to show up. And to my knowledge, these protests still might be happening.
Group of protesters who were armed. Today, someone emailed our newsroom saying that they were at yesterday's protest and were one of the people armed with a gun. He didn't want to go on camera, but says the group that was armed was not a separate group, but were, quote, simply there to protect their homes and livelihoods from any individuals that threaten it. Meantime, the governor's office gave me this statement about an hour ago. It said, thankfully...
Yes, that is why we were there. And we, whenever the media did come by, we didn't know he was a media guy at first, but then it was after we kind of noticed like a camera slung behind his back that we realized he was media, and we thought it was just a regular dude being like, oh, hey, why are you guys out armed? And we're just like, oh, cause this and this and this and this. And then we realized he was media, and then we shut up immediately.
Protests in Idaho have been mostly peaceful. Local law enforcement and Idaho State Police are monitoring protests across the state and doing a good job engaging at the appropriate level. Mark?
All right, Shira, thank you.
God, I hope I wasn't on camera in that last frame. 1 second.
Engaging at the appropriate level. Mark?
All right. Shira, thank you.
Alright, I think I was worried there for a sec. I mean, honestly, I don't know if I was going to be worried. I guess the only reason I'd be worried is if my family saw it, because some of my family don't think the way I do, I guess. And now we're looking at Politico. Protests after Floyd's death reach rural America. I wouldn't call it rural. Shut up. And, God, that looks like Tuesday, the day I wasn't there, where thousands of people showed up, from what I heard. It's kind of sad to have missed it. Boise, Idaho. Demonstrations sparked by the death of George Floyd have spread well beyond major urban centers to cities and towns across rural America. In Boise, thousands of people attended a peaceful vigil this week honoring Floyd, the black Minnesota man who died after a white police officer pinned his neck for almost 9 minutes to others who lost their lives to police abuse. Demonstrations after the Tuesday evening vigil lasted until about 2:30 a.m. for the third day in a row. Events in Boise were among demonstrations in more than 350 cities across the U.S. since Floyd's death. Many in urban areas such as New York, there were riots. Los Angeles, there were riots. Washington, D.C., there were riots. But the protesters' message against racism and police abuse has resonated in smaller cities and towns like Boise as growing minority communities begin to find their voice. I forgot Politico was, well, Politico. They have a real way of wording things. Anyway, the history of movements of racial equality in rural America has been overlooked. When people think of the rural West, especially, they tend to think of white communities, said Stephen Beta, University of Oregon professor who researches rural protest movements. Many communities of color have long and important histories in those rural communities. In Medford and Grants Pass, which Beta described as smaller rural towns in Oregon, demonstrations have been held for several days with hundreds of people participating. and Medford. Police helped to redirect traffic to avoid conflict during the largely peaceful protests. Beta said demonstrations in areas not well known as metropolitan melting pots show the long history of the fight by the people of color and for labor and civil rights in towns where minorities are sometimes an invisible but vital force of rural life. Boise, a city of 228,000 with a minority population of 18%, is not new to protests. Demonstrations supporting the rights for children of undocumented immigrants were held in 2017 and 2019 and MLK Day of Greatness rally. Organized by Boise State University, students and staff draw hundreds of marchers every year. But the size and energy of the crowds at the vigil, protests since Floyd's death, are unusual. And another thing I'll mention, I wrote that protest while they were walking around the block. They were trying to intimidate us. They were trying to get us to do something that would get spun wrong on the news. And we have all talked amongst ourselves, saying, anything they say, ignore it. Don't say anything back. Don't instigate. Don't hardly ever look at them. Just say kind words. No matter what they say to you, you say kind words. So, when they called us fucking bootlickers or racists or saying that we got picked on as kids, all we said to them back was don't drink and drive, wear your seatbelt, and be safe. Now, it's times like these to where we have to remain vigilant. We have to stay on top of what is happening in our country. What are wrong things that are happening, and what can we do to correct them? First off, Second Amendment supporters, gun owners, all of them, during these protests, they must make an appearance to show them that we're not going to take their shit lying down. Ever. And the day we take their shit lying down is the day they bury us 6 feet under, because we won't do it while living. And this is about where I should probably end this. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching The Shooting Mechanic. Make sure to like and subscribe. Have a good day.